Howdy, y'all. Welcome back to the DBZ All-Star for another piece of celebrating Batman Day 2025, which is September 20th, 2025. You might be wondering why, if I'm doing a Batman video, I'm wearing a Jeff the Land Shark t-shirt. Well, beyond the fact that Jeff is adorable and a significant character in my mind, he's also a support character. With that in mind, what would Batman be without his Bat family, his support system? So beyond talking about the top runs, collected editions for Batman, we need to focus as well on some of the characters that make Batman a great character by sharing their space with him. With that in mind as well, I might be cheating a little bit with one particular book, which we'll delve into a little bit later. But we're going to start off with Batman's oldest ally, beyond Alfred, of course, and focus on the original Robin, Dick Grayson, who in this case will have the focus as Nightwing. If you're looking to explore adventures with Dick Grayson, look no further than the Nightwing Compendium Volume 1, also known as Nightwing, A Night in Bloodhaven Compendium 1. Volume 2 came out earlier this year, which is, again, 2025, if you're watching this video at a later date. And this collects the early adventures of Nightwing as a solo character. It is thicker than a Snicker, obviously not as tall as an omnibus. It's more closely related in size to the dimensions of a trade paperback. And yeah, this first volume hits the ground running, really establishes Nightwing as his own person coming out of the shadow of Batman, has some great Chuck Dixon stories before he became a controversial figure. We won't delve into that, just mentioning it. And I can't wait to pick up Volume 2. Hopefully there's a Volume 3, because there's a lot of Nightwing that remains uncollected. If you're looking for something smaller with Dick Grayson as Nightwing pre-Flashpoint, then look no further than Nightwing Year 1, the 20th Anniversary Deluxe Edition. This collects a short story arc detailing Nightwing's first year as Nightwing. Dick Grayson really starts to define himself as his own man and as his own style of superhero, thanks to some friendships, including Superman, who inspired the name Nightwing. This collects the early 100s issues for Nightwing's first ongoing series. So this is 101 through 106, I believe, of the original Nightwing series, and has a beautiful direct market cover available if you can still track it down. About the same size as an Omni, obviously not as thick, but if you're looking for Nightwing adventures that are not as much of an investment, that is the way to go. So let's set those off to the side. Next, I would recommend a sort of different Dick Grayson adventure. This is the Grayson, the Super Spy Omnibus, and it takes place following the Nightwing, the Prince of Gotham Omnibus, which just came back into print, thank goodness, because we need all the Nightwing collected edition material that we can possibly get. This particular book ran for about 30 issues before an event called Forever Evil kind of disrupted the flow and precipitated the need for Dick Grayson to follow a different path in life and get outside of Gotham and Bloodhaven, even though Bloodhaven didn't get as much focus. This collects the entire series as well as sets up what follows the Grayson era for Dick Grayson, puts him in the international intrigue line of work. Wonderful work by Tom King, Tim Seeley, following Kyle Higgins' run on Nightwing, Prince of Gotham, which was kind of up and down in terms of quality. And I would say that following this up with the Nightwing Rebirth Omnibus, Volume 1, is a great choice because Tom King exits to focus on Batman in the Rebirth era, but Tim Seeley stays on for close to 30 issues, and it feels like a natural follow-up. So that's what we have for Dick Grayson. What about some female emphasis? Well, okay, not a problem. Featuring Barbara Gordon as Batgirl, we have the return of Batgirl in the New 52 era. This is the first 30 plus issues. This goes 0 through 34 of the Gail Simone run. Collects the Gail Simone run of the New 52 series as a whole before the Batgirl of Burnside era that is hit or miss in my mind starts. How did Barbara recover from having her spinal cord shot and being in a wheelchair? Well, you have to read this to find out. I know it was a bit of a controversial move, but the way Gail Simone kind of takes that directive to put Barbara back in the role of Batgirl and hits the ground running, fills the run with emotional beats, delves into Barbara's relationship with her father, Commissioner James Gordon, and other characters, what she has to do in order to prove herself to Batman, or does she even really care? It's all contained within this omnibus, which will hopefully get a reprint at some point. Moving back over to Robin. The Robin I grew attached to because I grew up with him was Tim Drake, and so far we have one Robin Tim Drake compendium. I'm hoping for more, and this really collects everything that you need to get an understanding of Tim Drake as a character and as Robin. It really showcases why, in order for Batman to do what he does and delve into the dark, he needs a Robin by his side to pull him back into light so he doesn't cross those lines, especially in the aftermath of the Death in the Family storyline. Tim Drake has not gotten the best portrayals in the last couple of years, so if you want some classic Chuck Dixon style writing, if you want great characterization for the character Tim Drake, this is the way to go. Again, so far, one compendium. I really wish they'd put out a collected edition in full, whether it's a compendium or an omnibus, preferably an omnibus for the severely underrated Red Robin series. Going back to something about Batgirl, even though she's not featured as much at the start, we have a team that is a legacy team of itself, the Birds of Prey. This is the first volume, Megadeth by Kelly Thompson, has Black Canary gather a team of heroes, including a Batgirl, Cassandra Cain, Harley Quinn. Yes, this is my Harley Quinn focus for this video as well, since she's a Batman-related character, and others, including Big Barda, and some surprises tied to other imprints and to Green Arrow and Black Canary as well. Follows up on some missing plot points and missing characters that many fans were hoping would be followed up on after years and years of waiting. We're at, I believe, Volume 4 at this point. The book just hit issue 25. Stellar artwork, great characterization, a lot of humor that doesn't mess with the action and emotional beats. Well worth having in any collection. Now, for Batgirl in general, I would say I'm torn between two. I love Barbara Gordon, but I'm an Oracle fan. I love Cassandra Cain, and I love Stephanie Brown. So Cassandra Cain came out of the Batman No Man's Land event that I mentioned in my previous video, dealing with the top runs, as I felt, for Batman. And Cassandra Cain was a character that came out of that, had to really define herself after not really having a full understanding of her past, not having the same social skills that other characters in the Batman territory did, and for a long time she didn't have her own ongoing series. She played a great role in the Batman, the Rise and Fall of the Batmen, by James Tinney in Omnibus. She's had some smaller roles since, but this is her first volume of her current ongoing series. I believe, yes, it collects the first 6 issues of it. Volume 2's already been solicited for release in early 2026, and it feels very much like a follow-up to the early 2000 series, which I love and hate that it got canceled in the wake of Infinite Crisis, because it was never really the same for a little while once 1 year later kicked in for Cassandra. They had to retcon what was done to her later on. But this is off to a great start as really a non-explicitly stated follow-up series to that. Lastly, for Batgirl, I promise, or ask if you want more, we have Batgirl, Stephanie Brown. This is Volume 2, which was recently reprinted. This is the original printing. Volume 1 for me is in storage. Stephanie Brown started out as a character called Spoiler, who was often partnered with Tim Drake, Robin, and after Cassandra Cain left the role of Batgirl, not spoiling that, she kind of lost one of her friends. Tim was kind of off doing his own thing in the wake of an event in the Batman universe as Red Robin, and Stephanie took on the role of Batgirl and really made it her own, forged her own path, forged her own relationships, including teaming up with Supergirl and becoming one of her best friends, before this was unfortunately canceled in the wake of Flashpoint, where Stephanie Brown didn't really show up in the New 52 until the Batman Eternal yearish long event, which was rather controversial. Stephanie Brown hasn't really gotten as much love as I would like her to during the Rebirth era and post, but hopefully with the reprinting of these 2 volumes, maybe there's an omnibus on the way. Maybe there's a DC's Finest detailing some of the early stories of Stephanie Brown. Who knows? Maybe Stephanie Brown will eventually get more love, because the design of that costume is pretty damn cool. And finally, this might be a cheat, but she does go into Batman's orbit from time to time, so I'm counting it, gosh darn it. It's my video. We have Zatanna. This was reprinted last year. This is the Zatanna by Paul Dini thick trade paperback. Collects the entire pre-Flashpoint series, which I believe was 16 issues. And this will be reprinted in an omnibus next year as well. The Zatanna by Paul Dini omnibus. Zatanna is my all-time favorite DC Comics character because she puts a lot of heart and soul into her relationships with other characters. She has to kind of tread that line between light and dark magic because, controversially, she had to do something disdainful in the Brad Meltzer penned Identity Crisis, and that brought about some stories where she had to seek redemption. But I love Zatanna as a character, despite that little bit of controversy in time, and she's always probably going to be my favorite DC character because she's unique amongst the heroes. She doesn't just use her power for superheroics, it's part of her day job as well, because girls gotta pay the bills. So with all that being said, whether you're looking for something involving Batman's very first partner, or his third Robin, any strong, empowered female characters, Batman's got a great supporting cast, and Batman needs all the support he can get, because the man has gone through several mental health crises over the years. At the end of the day, make sure you have your own support system, and you provide support where you can to other people, because we're not in this world alone. In the meantime, celebrate Batman Day, find the support that works for you, stay healthy, stay safe, be well, and thank you so much for watching.